Alright, what is going on, guys? It is Shane again, and we're back with another ranking. Now, as I promised, I am going to be ranking my top 5 guitar players and bass players. Now, I thought about including singers and drummers, and I used to be a drummer before I played bass. Drums are a little different. To pick a good drummer, I mean, dude, you could go... You could go or something like that and still be a good drummer. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not downplaying drummers or saying it's easy. It's not. It's difficult to play drums. I'm saying my main focus when I look at a band personally is the guitarist and the bass player. Mainly now the bass player. But where I got my groove and where I learned how to play music and have like a good time signature was when I started off on the drums. Actually, I'm not downplaying drummers. I just will not be doing a top 5 drummer list. It's that simple. So let's get into it. So of all time, at number 5, I would put Jimi Hendrix. My mother, who passed away, seen this guy before he OD'd in the 70s. He, for being, you know, at the time. Sorry, someone knocked on my door, and it's okay. The thing with Jimi Hendrix is at the time of his stardom, African Americans were still oppressed. So think of it in a smart way. I'm not being an idiot by saying what I'm about to say. Think of this in a smart way and take a second to think. If this man lived in a time period where African Americans still weren't entirely accepted, and he was respected, accepted, and loved by people, this man could play guitar. He was so good that there's only been a few musicians that have actually taken their name and thrown it on the front of the entire band. And the other one I can really think of is at this moment while my brain is only trying to do so many things at once, is Marilyn Manson. And Marilyn Manson is in Manson. Real quick, Marilyn Manson. I like Marilyn Manson, but he's a little creepy. Very, very, very weird guy. But, you know, he never did anything weird on paper, so, I mean, I respect him for it, but, you know, and he's done a lot and gotten famous. But really, Manson, from 94 to, like, 2005, well, that was, like, the peak of his career. He's been shit, in my opinion, ever since 2005. But regardless, we're back to Jimi Hendrix. The reason I'll mention all that is because Jimi Hendrix was on the face of the band, and it was reported, you know, that this motherfucker used to wear a sweatband because he would sweat when he was playing guitar, and he would drip acid into the sweatband and into his eyes. This dude was an acid king, and apparently he was partially blind as well, and it was apparently from the acid. So, you know, but Jimi Hendrix, if you actually listen to his music, like all along the Watchtower, and Purple Haze is a big one, but listen to his music, it's really, really, really phenomenal music. At number 4, you're actually going to see one of the strangest ones, but if you actually listen to the band Megadeth. Now, I love Metallica. I respect Metallica. Metallica were smart enough to get more famous than Dave Mustaine, but if you want to talk about talent on a guitar, I think Dave Mustaine is way better than Kirk Hammett. Way better. But Kirk Hammett's still a G, but Dave Mustaine is undoubtedly a top tier compared to Kirk Hammett. Listen to songs like Mechanics, Tornado of Souls, Holy Wars, Hangar 18, Reckoning Day, Wake Up Dead, My Last Words, Good Morning Black Friday, Into the Lungs of Hell, and let me think of one more Megadeth song that's fast like that. I can't at the moment, but in general, listen to a Megadeth, especially an 80s and 90s Megadeth record. This guy could play really good at guitar, like fast, like speeds that only the guitarist you're about to see further on this list could go speeds quicker and more coordinated than this guy. So out of the thrash metal bands, out of Slayer, Metallica, Anthrax, and Megadeth, I would pick Dave Mustaine out of any member that's played guitar for any of those bands ever. And Mustaine was in Metallica. So 3, we got Jimmy Page. Now, Jimmy Page. If you want to think of the first, like, hard rock / metal guitar player that revolutionized and influenced all the rock and hard rock you hear today? Jimmy fucking Page. Jimmy Page played such arrangements of chords and in such a style with such a groove that it made people jaws drop. Jimmy Page is one of those guitar players in Led Zeppelin, is one of those guitar players that you just can't replicate. He had such a unique but groovy style. And as you see right there, I mean, this dude had a double neck guitar. And that's just in the photo. I mean, this dude, listen to his riffs. Listen to a Led Zeppelin record. I don't care what record it is, because they went all the way up until 1980 when John Bonham died. You want to look at John Bonham, I'll give you a blind ranking of drummers at the end too, as a little tidbit. How about that? But John Bonham will be in there for sure. But Jimmy Page, amazing man. And that's, like I said, spin any Zeppelin record front to back and listen to the guitar aspect of the songs. You'll know what I'm talking about. Sure, you saw this one coming. Number 2, Dimebag Darrell. Dimebag Darrell was all original. Dimebag Darrell was so original that Pantera only covered one song in their entire career on album, and that was Planet Caravan. And it was and I like the way they covered it, because they actually covered that, and we're gonna go over the rankings, but they covered that on their elite 1994 Far Beyond Driven record. That record is brutal and excellent musicianship from front to back. The entire fucking thing is a monster. I'll talk about Far Beyond Driven on the Pantera ranking, but Planet Caravan, great way to end a record with a cover. Dimebag Darrell is more original than Van Halen, which is why I put Pantera as my number 1 favorite band, but Van Halen's number 2, because even though they covered songs, they did it well. But you want to know whose guitar is buried with Dimebag Darrell? You probably do. When Dimebag Darrell was shot and killed, Eddie Van Halen gave his original Bumblebee yellow and black striped, sorry, it's late for me, guitar, and put it in the casket next to Darrell. Not a copy, but the original. Saying, and I quote, "Darrell was an original. He deserves the original." And that guitar was used to record my favorite Van Halen record of all time, personally, Van Halen 2. So, let's talk about spinning a record. If you can handle it, I can, because I love that type of music. But most people are too soft for it. But if you spin a Pantera record from front to back, regardless, if you can listen past Phil's obnoxious screams, which sometimes they are obnoxious, I'll give you that, but I like it because it's destructive. But listen to his solos, his musicianship, his guitar playing, both in the studio and live. Going to or watching a Pantera concert is the best experience, or had to have been back in the day, I'd assume, because Darrell's gone. But you could throw guitarist like Zakk Wylde on a list like this, but we have to condense it down to 5 people. So, but Dimebag Darrell is a G, and I'm sure, dude, if you obviously aren't speaking to me, and you can't speak to me right now, but if you could guess the next guitar player on this list and the number 1 I think of all time, I will give you a hamburger sticker. It's Eddie Van Halen. Eddie Van Halen is by far, and Dimebag Darrell not only knew Van Halen towards the end of his life, but idolized the man his entire life and took a lot of his influences from Eddie, and that's why Dimebag Darrell turned out to be such a good guitarist. If you are a guitar player, the chances of you having picked up the guitar and you had influenced by Van Halen to pick up that guitar, then it's pretty high, because the chances of you picking up the guitar for the first time because of this man is astronomically probably high compared to other guitarists as well. But Eddie Van Halen, people only talk about the tapping. Look at his riffs. Look at his choices of instruments, keyboards, acoustic guitar, backing vocals. He played lead at one point. lead guitar solos. And if you listen to a Van Halen record, he's the only guitarist in the band. He actually will track both a rhythm, quote unquote, and a lead guitar. If you listen to some of their songs live, there's actually a part missing because you can't play two riffs at the same time. I mean, Halen could if he, but the intro to Mean Street. The fact that he could use his thumb and his pinky to tap the neck on both sides of the neck so quickly like that. Everything about how one word to describe Eddie Van Halen is 101% without a doubt innovation. An innovative guitar player, a revolutionary guitar player, an influential guitar player, and a martyr is how you would describe Edward Van Halen. Moving on to the bass players. Top 5 bassists, and that is a sweet guitar in my opinion. Number 5, some of you actually might not have saw it coming, but if you listen to Hal Gray might not be a bass soloist, but you don't find many bassists soloing. I do it. Michael Anthony does it. Cliff Burton has done it. Les Claypool has done it. I can't wait for you to see the rest of this fucking list. But even though Paul Gray didn't necessarily solo, the fact that Paul Gray, I think, is one of the best bass players. Not only if you had to put a soul behind the men playing these instruments, including the guitarists I've listed thus far and the bassists I'm about to list, Paul Gray had what I like to call a pure soul. Yes, he did drugs, but he was the glue of that band. When Paul Gray died, a lot of the members of Slipknot, as a lot of us are too, if you're subscribed to my channel, were troubled. Every single one of these men had something good to say about Paul Gray when he died at the press conference, which I watched it, obviously. Nobody had anything bad to say about Paul Gray. And I couldn't find anything at all either. He always had a smile on his face. He was one of the few members in the band that no matter, even with the drug usage, his positive, uplifting spirit, which almost none of those guys could even come close to him. The only one I think is Mick Thompson, and Corey Taylor is revolutionary, and they're all revolutionary, but is in terms of spirit, Paul Gray. That band has since dissolved after Paul Gray died. And I will be doing a Slipknot power ranking, or not power ranking, that's for football, album ranking. But if you look at Paul Gray, how he kept up with Jim Root and Mick Thompson, and he was a founding member, and his spirit and his determination and the riffs he wrote. Now, if you really want to hear Paul Gray's display, don't listen to what most of you might think is Slipknot's first record, their self-titled 99 quote-unquote debut. Listen to their 1996 Mate Feed Kill Repeat demo record. Specifically the songs Do Nothing Bitch Slap, Slipknot, or what later became the song Sick, which is a self-titled song, which later became a self-titled record instead of the name Slipknot. And specifically, if you want to hear how good Paul Gray was on bass, and apparently, which I believe it because Paul Gray wasn't really a liar either, is listen to the song Confessions. If you listen to any song I aforementioned, if I were to pick one to stress for you to listen to the most, Confessions by Slipknot off of Mate Feed Kill Repeat 1996. Because apparently Paul said he had just picked up a bass at that point. But if you actually listen and watch videos of Paul playing, phenomenal bass player. If I have a specific heartstring for Paul Gray. Rex Brown from Pantera is a very, very similar circumstance to Paul, except he didn't pass away, and Rex is a little... let me say something to you, which the next bass player is also going to have the same situation. If you can play the same notes, learn the same notes, and play them the same exact style and rhythm as a guitar player like Dimebag Darrell, you automatically, in my opinion, are a legendary bassist. Same with Paul Gray. Rex Brown is not a bass soloer, but he kept up good with Dimebag Darrell, wrote great riffs underneath Darrell's main guitar riffs in a lot of the songs, And he is very underrated in my opinion. So underrated that I'm throwing him on a top 5 bass player list. I think Rex Brown is a true definition of hard. Now, Phil Anselmo is a crazy... I don't give many people this. Phil Anselmo is a scary guy. But he's just like everyone else. He just wants to be accepted. But Anselmo's nuts. But I think Rex Brown kept up with Dimebag Darrell. He didn't just keep up with Dimebag Darrell. His solos, you know, because there actually are a couple. The song Tens, you hear a bass solo under Dimebag Darrell's solo in the song Tens. But a lot of his music, even though he didn't necessarily solo and take the spotlight per se, his grooves, he wasn't just... what I want to say is Rex Brown wasn't copying Dimebag Darrell. He was actually playing very good, different but still applicable to the song notes, if that makes sense. You get what I'm saying. He had such a great style. Very, very, very underrated musician is Rex Brown. Same scenario, except this man had an aura to him, Polish, like no other. Except I feel like I want to give myself, I want to try doing something unique here with this channel, but Michael Anthony, or his real Polish last name is Sobluski. I believe that this man, talking about influencing people to pick up instruments, I believe that this man influenced our next number 2 bassist to pick up a bass guitar. This man could solo on a bass like no one at the time, up until Burton came along. Michael Anthony, even after Burton came along. Michael Anthony, if you listen to how Mikey plays on his solos alone, he has a gift to play bass like that. That's all I can say. But again, not only is Michael Anthony a legendary bassist, but he was the bassist for in my opinion, who was the best guitar player of all time. And just like Rex Brown, he didn't just keep up with Van Halen. He played different things that still sounded good enough to make the guitar and bass combine. He was that fucking good at bass guitar, Michael Anthony. Because that's the whole point of a bass, is to combine the drums and guitar in a lower end. That's what bass guitar was invented for, to cover in the blank sound in between the drums and guitars. But some of these men, including myself, Mike Anthony, Cliff Burton, and our number 1 pick, can play the bass guitar like a regular guitar. One thing I'll say about Michael Anthony before we move on to the next guy, who I believe Mikey influenced to pick up the bass, is that Michael Anthony not only could play bass in solo, but Mikey was a integral part of Van Halen, because his voice also, and it's probably him fucking belting a fucking yodel right there. Michael Anthony had one of the most beautiful voices I've ever heard come out of a man's lungs. No weird shit. It sounds like an angel. So everything about him, his ability to entertain the crowd with his solos, his ability to play very well with Van Halen, and his backing vocals ultimately sold the band. I believe Van Halen would not have been as successful as they were without Michael Anthony, and he's so underrated too. Same with Rex. Number 2 isn't as much, but... Or, actually, I meant to say, excuse me, back to Mike. I believe Michael Anthony influenced the number 1 pick, I'm so sorry, to pick up the bass guitar. But at number 2, we have a bassist here that is a monster at bass guitar. Primus, the band, that's where this man is from, in case you don't know, because not many people really look into Primus's history unless they're really nerdy or just really, really smart. That's my case. But Les Claypool can play slap bass, can sweep a bass neck like you wouldn't think it's even possible, because if you play a bass guitar or you play bass, you'll know that the strings are thicker and it's harder to plant notes, so you can't really solo like really fast. But this guy gets it done. You listen to a song like "American Life" by Primus, and you won't forget it. But watch them live, because this guy replicates his solos perfectly live. And actually, this man right here, I could say, if someone were to put a gun to my head and said pick an instrument and pick a person that plays that instrument, and if they replicate their song better than anyone I've seen live as it would be on the studio recording, I won't blow your brains out. I would choose Les Claypool. That is how much he can actually replicate his studio recordings. He's actually very gifted in the area of coordination. And we're going to number 1 here, and I'm gonna blandly rank some drummers after this real quick. But number 1, Cliff fucking Burton, and I don't even gotta say anything. If you don't know who Cliff Burton is, you are living under a rock. Cliff Burton is the epitome of a soul. And I said that before, but he is a fucking soul. Many of you might not know, but I heard in a documentary, and I believe it. The reason Cliff Burton picked up a bass guitar is because he already was sort of like looking for an instrument to play. His little brother actually passed away, and he made a vow that he would become the best bass player ever in honor of his dead brother. Now, that's a bold statement to say that you are going to become the best at something ever of all time. This motherfucker did it because this motherfucker was only recorded 3 records with Metallica: Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, and Master of Puppets, and died on the Puppets tour, obviously, if you know that. But he died in '86. He was in the spotlight for only 3 years, and I still believe his bass playing is unmatched to the day. It's euphoric. I mean, even look at the way this man stands, his hair, ways the chord he's playing. He was everything about him was just, I don't even know how to describe it to you. It was just euphoric. It was sweet. It was fast. It was coordinated. It was legendary. And overall, it was musically inclined because, a little fact you may not know, is that at the time of his death, he was the only member of Metallica, and upon joining, to have actually gone. He went to college and studied music. So, that's that. Rest in peace to a couple of these people, to a lot of them, actually. To Daryl, Eddie, Cliff, Paul Gray, Jimi Hendrix. Rest in peace. You are missed, and your legacy will not be forgotten. Top 5 drummers, I'll spit them out as fast as I can. 5, Vinnie Paul. 4, John Bonham. 3, Neil Peart. 2, Charlie Benante. And 1 is undoubtedly Joey Jordison. And you can throw drummers like Lars Ulrich and Jay Weinberg in there. I hope you enjoyed this recording. I'm not sure how I'm going to organize it. I'm probably going to put this at the end of all the album rankings that I do for the rest of these bands. But yeah, this stuff is awesome. But life has a way of being different. Life has a way of throwing things at you that. And it's God ultimately, but they'll throw things at you where even when you think you're ahead, you never really are. And that's not to deter people, but it's sad when people die. It really is, because Cliff was just a legend through and through. And all of them were, honestly. I hope you enjoyed this. You know the drill. Leave a like, leave a sub. I'm trying to do something kind of similar, but a little different, so it goes a long way. I appreciate you.